This video explores a phenomenon that is often misunderstood, sensational, or reduced to shocking headlines. The so-called bride markets of Bulgaria, where young women are sometimes described in media reports as being sold for marriage. To understand what is really happening, it is important to move beyond viral clips and dramatic phrases and look carefully at the cultural background, the social mechanics, the economic pressures, and the ethical controversies surrounding these events. The idea of young virgins for sale immediately triggers strong reactions. But the reality is more complex, rooted in tradition, poverty, and changing modern values colliding in one visible space. In several rural regions of Bulgaria, particularly among some Roma communities, there exist matchmaking gatherings that outsiders often label as bride markets. These events are not officially organized by the state, nor are they advertised as commercial markets in a legal sense. They usually take place during festivals or specific times of the year when families come together. Young men and women dress in their best clothes, and introductions are made under the supervision of elders. The setting is often an open field, a village square, or the outskirts of a town, filled with music, conversation, and ritualized behavior that has existed in various forms for generations. From a design and visual perspective, these gatherings resemble a traditional fair rather than a modern marketplace. Colorful dresses, gold jewelry, neatly groomed hair, and carefully chosen outfits play an important role. Families invest significant effort into presentation because appearance is seen as a reflection of honor, family status, and readiness for marriage. For young women, modest yet elegant clothing is meant to signal virtue and respectability. For young men, confidence, posture, and visible signs of financial stability such as clothing or accessories are emphasized. These visual elements are often misinterpreted by cameras that focus only on surface-level spectacle without context. The performance aspect of these events lies in how people behave within clearly defined social roles. Young women usually stand or walk alongside female relatives, rarely alone, while young men approach with their families to initiate conversations. Negotiations, when they happen, are conducted primarily between parents or elders, not between the couple themselves. This can look transactional to an outside observer, especially when discussions involve money. In many cases, a bride price is mentioned, which is a traditional practice in some cultures where the groom's family gives a sum of money or gifts to the bride's family. This is often framed internally as compensation for raising the daughter or as a contribution toward the new household, rather than a literal purchase of a person. The term virginity carries heavy cultural weight in these communities. It is associated with family honor, moral upbringing, and social respect. For that reason, the emphasis on a bride being a virgin is often highlighted in conversations and media reports. However, this emphasis is part of a broader value system rather than a public inspection or explicit discussion. The concept is used symbolically to indicate that the woman is entering marriage without prior relationships, which is seen as desirable within traditional norms. While this can be deeply problematic from a modern human rights perspective, it is important to understand how insiders interpret it before judging the practice solely by its most provocative label. Economics play a major role in sustaining these traditions. Many of the regions where bride markets occur face high unemployment, limited access to education, and long-standing discrimination, especially among Roma populations. Early marriage is sometimes viewed as a form of economic security for young women and their families. A marriage agreement can mean one less person to support, a financial inflow through bride price, and the hope of stability in a harsh environment. For young men, marriage is also tied to social status in adulthood, with the ability to provide being a key expectation. From a technical and legal standpoint, Bulgarian law does not recognize the buying or selling of people for marriage. Forced marriage, child marriage, and human trafficking are illegal. Officially, marriages must involve consenting adults and be registered with the state. The problem arises in the gap between law and practice. Some marriages are conducted informally through religious or community ceremonies without state registration, making them harder to monitor. This gray area allows harmful practices to continue while remaining partially hidden from authorities. One of the unique selling points of this topic for documentaries and media coverage is its raw visibility. Unlike hidden trafficking networks, these gatherings are public, making them easy to film and censor. Cameras often focus on young women standing quietly while men and families observe them, reinforcing the impression of objectification. What is rarely shown is the private family discussions, the pressures faced by the girls, or the lack of alternatives available to them. This selective framing boosts views but reduces understanding. Performance also extends to how these events are presented to outsiders. Some participants are aware of journalists and may exaggerate aspects of the tradition for attention or money. Others feel exposed and misrepresented. The presence of cameras can change behavior, turning a community ritual into a staged performance that feeds stereotypes. This complicates any attempt to evaluate authenticity, because what viewers see may already be influenced by external interest. Design elements are not limited to clothing and setting, but also include ritual gestures. Jewelry is particularly significant, often symbolizing both wealth and commitment. Gold bracelets, necklaces, and earrings are not just decoration, but a form of financial security for women, as they can be sold in times of need. Music and dance, when present, serve to create a celebratory atmosphere, masking the underlying seriousness of marriage negotiations. These elements contribute to the confusing mix of festivity and tension that defines the environment. From a layman-friendly perspective, it helps to compare these bride markets to old-fashioned matchmaking practices that existed in many parts of the world, including Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. Arranged marriages, dowries, and family negotiations were once common, even in societies that now view them as outdated. What makes the Bulgarian case stand out is how these practices persist in a modern European country, creating a sharp contrast between contemporary values and traditional customs. Critics argue that regardless of cultural context, these practices often limit women's freedom and reinforce gender inequality. Young women may feel they have little choice, especially if education is cut short and marriage is presented as the only viable future. The pressure to conform can be intense, with social consequences for those who refuse. Supporters of the tradition counter that many women willingly participate and see marriage as a positive step, not as exploitation. The truth likely lies somewhere in between, varying from case to case. Human rights organizations and activists in Bulgaria have been working to address the negative aspects of these traditions by promoting education, enforcing marriage laws, and providing alternatives for young women. Outreach programs focus on keeping girls in school, raising awareness about legal rights, and challenging harmful norms from within the community rather than through external condemnation alone. Progress is slow, but there are signs of change, especially among younger generations who are exposed to different lifestyles through the internet and migration. The unique appeal of this subject for viewers lies in its ability to spark debate. It raises questions about where culture ends and exploitation begins, how far society should go in respecting traditions, and what responsibility the state has to intervene. It also forces viewers to confront their own assumptions and biases about communities that are often marginalized and misunderstood. Technically, when documenting or reviewing this topic, it is crucial to distinguish between legal adult matchmaking and illegal practices involving minors or coercion. Not all participants are underage, and not all marriages are forced, but the risk is high enough. But blanket romanticization is dangerous. Responsible coverage should avoid voyeurism and focus instead on lived experiences, legal frameworks, and social consequences. The story of bride markets in Bulgaria is not static. It is evolving as economic conditions change, as laws are enforced more strictly, and as individuals challenge expectations. Some families are abandoning the practice altogether, opting for marriages based on personal choice. Others adapt the tradition to fit modern norms, reducing or eliminating financial transactions and prioritizing consent. Ultimately, this topic serves as a mirror reflecting broader global issues: poverty, gender roles, cultural survival, and the clash between tradition and modernity. It is easy to reduce it to a shocking phrase, but doing so strips away the human complexity behind every face in those crowded fields. Each young woman standing there carries a personal story shaped by family, circumstance, and limited options. And each family navigating these traditions is responding to pressures that are not always visible on camera.